Okay, so for the second part of this, I don't want to say what didn't work well. I more want to say what could be improved in this lesson. So a couple of things. Obviously, make it a little bit longer based on the student feedback that I got. Make it a little bit longer. But additionally, and this was something that I got from one of my peer reviewers on this lesson, is, as you can see, all of my content is unlocked from the beginning. So one of my peer reviewers suggested that I lock the content until after the prior knowledge assessment has been taken. And I think that's a great idea because I think it's going to give me a lot more realistic understanding of how they're getting this content if they have to take the prior knowledge assessment first before they actually go through and start doing the lesson. So that was definitely something that I would change for next time. And then based on the student feedback, make the Nearpod a little bit longer, which leads me into the last question on that list, which was what questions arose after the test run. How do I make it longer? I spent a really long time on that Nearpod, and I think that there was a lot to it. But I think this is also, I had them do this unit after we had already finished learning theme. So they knew everything already. So I think they just got through it because we had just finished learning it and they understood it all. But I'm thinking a way that I could probably make that Nearpod a little bit longer is I could actually have them write a story in which they need to convey a very clear theme and then explain how they did it and what their theme was. So I definitely think that would be a way that I could improve it. And additionally, that would kind of help with the what worked well part because it's a different method of assessment and it appeals to a different learning style. I have a lot of kids who like to do creative writing, so I think that would work really well. Now, the big part of all of this was the INACOL and QM standards. So I said when we were first talking about QM and INACOL that I feel like they're very, very similar, but the QM standards are much more appealing to me because they're all on one page. So I'm going to use specifically the QM standards for my reference just because it's just easier for me to kind of speak to. And this also, the QM standards also kind of made me aware of some areas that I could improve this as well. So the QM standards, and I'll flip back and forth between this page and my unit, but the QM standards, I actually just went through and kind of highlighted in each individual standard category where I thought my lesson kind of fell, or my unit fell. And just in case anybody wants to know what this program is, this is DIGO. So up here, my little extension with the D, you can click on it on any web page that you're on, and then it'll allow you to annotate. So you can highlight and you can put notes and things, and it'll save it all to a drive for you. So just in case anybody is looking for some kind of annotation tool, it's super simple to use and it's free to sign up. So my QM standards, the course overview and introduction instructions make clear to students how to get started and where to find various components. So I have this little section right here, which is just kind of a blurb about my unit. And then I have my inclement weather unit overview, which has all of my objectives. It has each individual overview, and then in them, each individual day overview are all of the embedded links. So everything is really easy to get to, and everything is navigated or can be navigated really easily. So I definitely feel like it's clear and it's easy to use. So, oops, wrong one. So I definitely feel like where to find the components is pretty easy. For learning objectives, the modular unit level objectives or competencies describe outcomes that are measurable and consistent with the course level objectives. So my objectives were be able to recognize and analyze theme. That's something that I can tell from the Nearpod and from their theme TDA that they did. Assess elements of literature. That is the plot diagram. Identify and analyze elements of plot, also the plot diagram, and then write about theme while providing evidence and explanations would come from their TDA. So I feel like it's all very measurable, and they've been very successful with it so far. Wrong one again. The assessment and measurement, and this is what I talked about, what worked well in my unit. Multiple methods of assessment strategies are selected based on the specific learning objectives or competencies and student need. We're halfway through the school year, and I kind of know what my students do well with, the kinds of assessments that they do well with. Nearpod is one of them, quizzes is another, and they're pretty strong writers for 8th graders. So I definitely feel like there are multiple methods of assessment that I spoke to earlier, and they really align with the learning objectives. Oops. The instructional materials are integrated within the context of each lesson and their intended use is clear. So this is what I was talking about with each of my individual day outlines. So you can find it here in the unit overview. You can also find it underneath each day. So each day outline actually has the link embedded again. And I mean, the directions come first, the link comes second, or the link is embedded within the directions. So yeah, everything's pretty clear and easy to find, and their intended use is pretty clear, at least to me. The learning activities promote the achievement of the stated learning objectives or competencies, and I kind of talked about this with assessment and measurement. I definitely feel like the assessments that I use, the activities that I use really align with what I want them to achieve. Course tools facilitate student engagement, promote active learning. There's nothing that I'm doing that students don't learn actively with. So the Nearpod requires them to write and answer questions. The quizzes requires them to answer questions. My day 2 is reading a story and completing the plot diagram on it. Again, requires their engagement, requires their active participation. And then day 3 is writing. So yeah, everything is very requires them to constantly be participating. I'm going to talk about learner support in a minute. As you can see, it's the only one that isn't highlighted. And then accessibility and usability. The course provides alternative formats of course materials that meet the needs of diverse learners in order to accommodate the alternative means of access. So one of my lessons in day 2 is reading a story. And then I gave them the link to the story, which is here. So read the story. And then I also gave them the link to the audio version of the story because when I did my survey, my very last question was, if you were to do an online lesson and there was a story involved, would you feel like having an audio version of the story would help you? And something like 70% of my students said yes. So I did give them the audio version of that just to kind of help them follow along. Yellow wallpaper isn't too difficult of a story, but I've got some struggling readers, so having that auditory help can definitely work in their favor. And then learner support. Learner support was the only one that I couldn't highlight for myself. And going back through this, I don't really tell them where to get technical support or academic support aside from the questions for the instructor discussion board. So that's definitely an area that I think I could improve on and something that I need to look into for the future. So that's kind of how I feel about the QM and INACOL standards and my unit as a whole. Thanks for listening.